questions and a good conversation that we can all share at the end of this short presentation. Thank you, Ellie and Kriti, for helping me today. And just really quick acknowledgement disclaimer, the underlying research that I will present today in my second part of the presentation was done by a collaboration between the American Cancer Society, the IDB Behavioral Economics Group, La Liga Colombiana contra el Cáncer, Behavioral Government Lab, and I thank my co-authors, Lina Diaz, Stanislao Maldonado, Carlos Cartacini, Minu Anat, who is here today, and other researchers that provided valuable comments and research assistance along the process. And I am currently a paid scientific advisor for MSD. Yes, please write down any questions that you have in the chat. And if you want to turn on your camera so I can see who I'm talking to, that'd be great. If not, it's okay. I'll see you in the breakout rooms. Thank you, Ellie. So first, a little bit about behavioral economics. No? What is this? Isn't it economics behavior already? And all I have to say here is that the psychologists, saw economics, and they said there are a lot of variables that you guys are missing. And then there's where the behavioral economics was born, when they combined the psychology or complemented psychology with psychology economics. Next slide, please. Yeah, so behavioral economics and behavioral science as a whole give us a framework to understand this kind of situations. You look at this picture and say, well, these people are going to the gym, they're going to burn some calories, they're going to exercise and create some muscle, right? And when they get there, they see the escalators and they take it instead of taking the stairs that probably support their goals more. Just short answer and inform my behavioral science is that the context is driving them to move in that way, right? And when I was saying that psychology came to complement economics, it is true. Daniel Kahneman, a psychologist, won the Nobel Prize in economics for writing this book, Thinking Fast and Slow, that basically says that the brain, kind of the model of decision making, can be explained easily in two systems. Kind of system one, that is a system that is automatic, unconscious, it's prone to error, it's very fast, and it's also the one that makes the majority of our decisions in our daily life. I'll give you some examples in the next slide. Excuse me. And the system two, back, Sarah. System two is the one that is more conscious, requires effort, is less prone to error, is slow though, and it takes a lot of cognitive resources, right? Which are not limited. We have limited cognitive resources as humans. So, and this is better at making complex decisions. Some examples of how we use the systems in a very simplified way. Next slide, Sarah. So when do we use system one? Is when we speak our native language, is when we drive home from work, when we scratch an itch, right? It's very fast, it's what we do all the time. If I'm thirsty, I drink water, etc. In system two, we use it or we activate it when we speak foreign language, when we learn to drive, when we take a math exam, when we do something that takes effort, right? But we can be using this system two all the time. It wouldn't be efficient. We would take forever to make a simple decision. So as I told you, we usually just go with system one in our daily lives. Next one. Yeah, so as you can imagine, economists use this Homo economicus as the model of decision-making, human decision-making, and said, okay, the way that people make decisions is basically by using system two, and is that people weigh the cost and the benefits, right? And if the benefit is greater than the cost, then make a decision about doing something. They follow up with an action and they get the results that they want. And when the cost is greater than the benefit, they just don't do that. They don't take that action. They don't get the results. And when they don't know, only with information, they are able to they're able to weigh the costs and benefits. This is very linear, it's very squared, and as we know, next slide, that is not how we make decisions in reality, right? Or how we live in reality. So in reality, as I said, we mostly use system one, and we might weigh the benefits and the cost, and we say, okay, the benefit of going to the gym, for instance, is greater than the cost, or the benefit in the long term is going to be greater than the cost. So I'm going to go to the gym, and then you wake up and you decide to go to the gym, and click, Sarah, and you think, and what are others doing today, right? Like the impact of social norms, or how difficult it is, hassle factors, or have I behaved well enough today? So maybe I can delay the gym to another day, and then can I do it tomorrow? The fair? Do I still feel like it? Right? And at the end of this, who knows if this person went to the gym or not, and who knows what decision, what action they took. This is so familiar. Exactly, right? We do this all the time. We want to lose weight. We want to read more. We want to, learn another language. But all these barriers that are contextual barriers or part of the context, for instance, the social norms, right, that are leading us to act in a different way that we decided at the beginning, are very real. And the good news is that behavioral science and behavioral economics has studied these specific barriers, and then they have named them. And not only that, but they also have tried to come with solutions to overcome those barriers. Yeah, there are many, many, many papers, as you probably all know, about these behavior barriers, heuristics, and solutions that behavioral scientists come up with. And with that, hopefully you put this, in the back of your mind, and we say, okay, we have the science of behavioral economics, behavioral science, and how can we apply it to our cervical cancer elimination projects? I will tell you right now, I will explain I'll give you an example of a project that we did in Colombia to increase HPV vaccination for girls 9 to 17. And I really want to use this framework that the American Cancer Society has, and we adapted to our project. And actually we put in an action guide that you can see on the right side, that is almost like a zoom out, right, of how a project looks like, because I do think each of these actions are very important to have a successful project. And I will introduce behavioral economics in the process. Next slide. Right. So the action one that I want to talk to you about is to form a team. Obviously, to do a behavioral economics project, we need some behavioral economists or behavioral scientists. However, and some of you belong to cancer organizations, international and local, you are the foundation, right? For us, which I'm a behavioral scientist, having the American Cancer Society in this project as an international organization with very, high renown, and a local organization like the Liga Colombiana contra el Cáncer, who has the context, and I'll tell you more of why I think these people are so important, or these organizations, but they provide the foundation of this project that has a mission to eradicate cancer before us, and he will have it after us. So foundation, time, consistent throughout time, and then we have the ecosystem that allow us to do this type of projects. In this case, for immunization, is the immunization programs, local and national, and the health insurances in the country. And then you don't have to have this for your projects, right? But we had an academic research team that allow us to write our findings at the end of the project, and helps us with the protocol to make it with rigor, et cetera. And then we have a behavioral scientist that I think you do benefit from. So the next slide. And people like Ideas 42 are very good at doing this type of international projects as well. And yeah, so what did these people provide? The cancer organizations, international and local, as I said, provide a mission to prevent cancers, right? It's a long-standing mission, and they have experience in leading these type of projects in your community, perhaps, and also maybe in other communities, so they can bring experiences from other places. they also sometimes provide funding for these projects. And the local organizations have a very nice contextual picture of what happens. They are probably have been working this project for a long time. But you already know that because you probably belong to them. Why are especially in our case, why were the immunization programs so important? And is that they brought the local knowledge, the data, and for us, that was a key component, the communication materials and systems that they had already been using, and the vaccination plans, right? And then I already mentioned the academic research kind of tasks, and the behavioral scientists develop the methodology, and they help the implementation, and they bring with them all these knowledge about the biases and the heuristics and experience from other projects that can then adapt to your context, right? They can help you as cancer organizations adapt to context. The second action, review the data, and they can look in different ways for different projects. But in our case, with the data from the Secretary of Health, we were able to understand where we were standing. And as you can see on the right side, the case of Colombia is very, very interesting. In 2012, they were the leaders in vaccination in HPV in the region. And like some countries don't even reach that 97.9%, right? Virtually all the girls were being vaccinated against HPV. And then there was a myth that was spread because of like supposedly side effects in the coastal town of Carmen de Bolivar. And then there was a widespread vaccine hesitancy in the country that led it to decrease to a coverage of 6.1 for the first dose and 1.6 for the second dose. Then it started going up again. But like this kind of data really gave us an understanding of, of what the scope of a problem, right? And of course, we learned all the things about the context by talking to the Secretary of Health as well. Something else that we reviewed, and next slide, please. Yeah, is the strategies that the action 2 is success strategies as well. So we understood what the Secretary of Health and the government was doing, so that we didn't either reinvent the wheel, but we mostly try to strengthen what they were already doing. And we learned that they were doing a text message campaign for parents of children. And they have a series of things that we could strengthen as well. And, I hope at this point, you're already thinking about ways to identify things that your health system or your community is doing, where you can maybe try to tweak or strengthen with behavioral economics. So what did we do? Next slide, please. So action 3 is to make a plan, and I add informed by behavioral science. The first thing that we did, but when we stood in this context, is that we had to determine the behavioral problem. And to determine a behavioral problem, we needed to choose a target population and an action that we wanted to encourage. In this case, we decided to work with the parents of girls 9 to 17 because of a series of reasons. One is that we had this data from the Secretary of Health that told us which girl needed the vaccine, but of course we can't work with girls, or at least we can, this kind of, we can pass it through the ethics committee as easily. So we took the low-hanging fruit and we said, okay, we're going to work with the parents to nudge their parents to bring their kids to get vaccinated. Next slide, please. And what we did is that we formed this, what you see here with the blue and the red is the decision and the action. It's called the decision action map. And we try to find the behavioral barriers, again, the biases, the heuristics, and the context that were preventing people from decide to get their kids vaccinated. And then once they decided, what were the barriers that were in between the decision and the action? And even in the action, what were the contexts that were preventing them from acting on that decision, right? And then once we had an idea of the behavioral barriers, we design solutions that strengthen what the government was already doing. And what we did is that we did this text message campaign where, well, I'll tell you after. But first, before I get to the design, I'm going to tell you some of the barriers that we found in this context in the next slide. So the stronger barriers, once we did some qualitative interviews, because this project is a mixed method where we understand the behavioral barriers, we do it by interviews with parents in the community. So we found these barriers of salience, trust, mental accounting, and forget. And what I mean by that is that parents told us they wait for the medical recommendation to vaccinate their daughter against HPV. And if they don't receive the recommendation, they just don't vaccinate their daughter. And that really opened an opportunity for us to use the figure of the doctors that they were waiting to hear from, right? And you'll see the results of that. The second one is that parents don't put the same effort into vaccinate their daughters against HPV as other vaccines. We learned that even if you see the data in Colombia, you see the vaccination rates for other biologicals, it's like 80-something%. But when you see the HPV, you see 30% or 10% in some localities. So we learned that the HPV vaccine was left out of the set of vaccines that they were thinking about. So we try to put them in the same set. Just spoiler, one of the messages that we used was like, your girl needs 21 vaccines and she's just missing one, the HPV vaccine. There's a vaccine waiting for you in your closest vaccination center. And the last one, this was also very important, because remember when the vaccinations were very high and then the myth spread and then the vaccine rate went down? It was also because the government took out the vaccine from schools, and they stopped like the dissemination campaigns of HPV at one point. So the parents didn't feel that the government supported strongly the vaccines, which really creates doubts about the legitimacy of the vaccine and the safety, right? Okay, next slide, please. So I'm not going to talk too much about this. We can talk about it in the breakout rooms if you want. This was a very specific project where we had the administrative data set from the Ministry of Health, and we have 174,000 data points that we can then randomize into different experiments. Maybe something interesting for you is that we used a text message campaign where we sent, and the cost of these text messages was very low, was 7 Colombian pesos per message, which I think translates into $0.007 dollars per message, something like that. So the cost was very, very small. And we send one text message per week for 8 weeks with behavioral science, with the same behavioral science message. And when we wrote these messages, we worked in co-design with American Cancer Society, with the Liga Colombiana contra el Cáncer, and experts of behavioral science. We even invited other experts to bring what they knew about other contexts, and we really designed messages so that the parents could understand them, right? So we use human-centered design and behavioral economics theory to write them. Next slide. Yes. Before we launched this, we prepared the system. We had the opportunity or the gift or the luck of sitting with the Ministry of Health in our meetings. So even when we prepared the system, at one point we were sending the messages, and when we were reviewing the data on our Zoom call, we noticed that some of the localities had run out of vaccine. So the Ministry of Health was there, and what we did is that we stopped the campaign, and literally someone, Marta Marin from the Ministry of Health, sent trucks or whatever they used to to bring the vaccine. They brought it from outside of Bogota into Bogota so we can continue the campaign. So that's, when I said about what I said about forming a team and having a very nice multi-sector team. Without it, this gets harder, right? Next slide, please. And here are the results. The different colors represent different experiments, and long story short, you can see that the people that didn't get any messages, and these were all randomized, so all these groups of people are virtually the same. So the group that did not receive a message vaccinate their kids in 5.56%, which you can think about as a natural vaccination rate. And then the most impactful message was the medical recommendation. Saw a vaccination rate of 7.88. When you see the difference, it's a difference of 42%, and these are statistically significant. So some lessons learned from this, and I could talk about these different messages, but I think you get the point. One second, Sarah. You get the point, which is this helps strengthen the already built-in system of motivating parents, right? They do help, and obviously I encourage you to think about these kind of behavioral strategies to strengthen the systems that you already have. Just two more things from the lessons learned is that the monitoring vaccination data was essential, because with this, now we know what works and what doesn't. We can prioritize some of the messages that worked and deprioritize the ones that didn't work as much. And this highlights the importance of partnerships with government and payers, as I said. And very, very important, this is where behavioral science helps, is that understanding the target population's behavioral barriers allows the creation of creative solutions